Yo, welcome to You. This is me. My guest at this time is going to be Ryan Sotelo. So Ryan, how you been, bro?
Good, dude. Just kind of living the dream. Uh, Up here at headquarters Marine Corps doing my thing.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I haven't spoke to you in a long time, and I know we had a few seconds to catch up before this started, and you telling me a few things that you had going on. So first of all, I want to congratulate you with your firstborn, man.
Thanks. Excited, scary, all at the same time.
Nice. It's a learning process.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, it's kind of shitty that you're not with your son right now because obviously you had to conduct some duties on the other side of the world or other side of the United States while they're on the West Coast. So for that, it happens. You're doing your job, you're doing your thing, but you always have handled your stuff, and I know you're going to be a great father.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. So besides that, what else you got going on, dude?
Not a whole lot. Just learning a lot at my current position, and out here just counting down the days until I can get home to my family. Keeping in touch with some of the guys that we were in 3-5 with. Very select few that I keep in touch with, but the ones that I do talk to, I talk to pretty regularly, which is good. We keep each other stable, keep each other, sane, and it's a good outlet for us to communicate with those guys, and it's very therapeutic. So
that's awesome, man.
Good. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions before military career, before everything. So where did you grow up? Where are you from?
So kind of complicated. I was born in Ajo, Arizona, which is a really small, used to be a copper mining town about an hour north of the Mexican border in Arizona. I moved from there to Tucson, where I grew up until I was 11. And then I moved to San Mateo, California. I know for any Marines out there, they think San Mateo, like 62 area, like no shit, you're in San Mateo. No, there's actually a San Mateo, California in the Bay Area. That's where I grew up and joined the Marine Corps out of the San Bruno recruiting station, and that's that.
Awesome, man. What year did you graduate high school?
Graduated high school in 2000. I don't.
It's not that bad. Come on, man. You're making yourself sound old.
Almost. I mean, the fact that in 2020, in June of 2020, it's going to be 20 years out of high school. It's pretty crazy. It makes me feel old seeing 18-year-old Marines that graduated in the 90s or the early 2000s. Like, it's pretty crazy. So I feel old.
Did you play any sports in high school or anything like that?
What's that?
Did you play any sports or anything?
I skateboarded in high school. In terms of sports, not really. I mean, growing up through middle school, I played baseball, and then it kind of fell off during high school. But going to the gym and skateboarding were my two outlets during high school.
You weren't too heavy for skateboarding, or you were working out too much?
I was a little bit heavy for skateboarding. I wouldn't say that I was all-in over anything very high, but yeah, I enjoyed getting out there and skateboarding with my buddies. So
nice. Street, park, what would you do?
Mainly street. So okay. I mean, skateboarding's huge in Northern California. There's all kinds of great venues out there. There weren't any skate parks at the time, so we would go and just skate on public property and get kicked off.
I understand. I used to skate as well.
So, yes, it was a good time. I had a fun upbringing.
Nice. Are you still skating now, or did you drop it?
I've still got a skateboard. My dog enjoys when I'm back at home. When we go out on the skateboard, he just runs like crazy, and I try not to eat it as he's ripping around the turns and down the street. But I definitely fully intend on getting my son on the skateboard as early as possible. So
nice. That's
yeah,
good, man. That's good.
Still got it.
That's good. So after high school, what did you end up doing? Did you do anything else, or did you go straight to the Marines?
So after high school, I went to San Francisco State University. I was still unsure of what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to join the military. But my parents were always big with me getting a college education. And I appreciate that. So I went to San Francisco State University. It was a commuter school, so I was still kind of into the same things that I was in high school, hang out with the same people. Didn't do too well. So I ended up going to College of San Mateo, which is community college. There I had more of a focus because they had a firefighter EMT program. So I got my firefighter 1 and I got my EMT. And then from there I started testing for, fire departments throughout the state of California.
Cool, man. So after the community college, did you make a decision then and there to go be a Marine, or were you planning on doing something else?
So at the time, California was in a budget crisis. They were reducing the number of firefighters that they were hiring a year. They were laying off firefighters. So it reinvigorated my desire to be a Marine. Especially that was around 2003 timeframe, just as the war was ramping up. I thought, what a better time to join the Marine Corps than in the height of 2 wars, and do something that I always wanted to do. I mean, every kid's dream when they're growing up, if you had any kind of military influence, was shooting shit and blowing shit up, and that was still my dream at that time, and so I joined the Marine Corps.
Nice.
At 2005, joined the Marine Corps at 23 years old, so I was substantially older than your usual enlistee in the Marine Corps.
Nothing wrong with that. Who was the influence that got you involved with the whole Marine Corps stuff?
So my grandparents on both my mom and my dad's side. My dad's side, my grandfather was in the Korean War, and on my mom's side, my grandfather was in World War II. Awesome. So it skipped a generation, and then I grew up in Tucson around Davis Mountain Air Force Base. I wanted to be a pilot when I was a kid. I wanted to fly an A-10. Ran around as a kid with toy guns, wearing full camouflage utilities, just wreaking havoc around the block with my cousin and friends, and just kind of matured from there into what I wanted to do.
Nice. So were your grandparents both Marines, or were they in different branches?
They were both in the Army.
Oh, Army.
Yeah.
Okay. So why didn't you go Army?
There's that perception, there's that image of a Marine. That it's the toughest branch, the best, and that's what I want to be. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it all the way.
Okay.
You want to be the best, the top of your game. Why settle for second best when you can be the best? So that's what I did.
Nice. Did they kind of hate you for it, or did you rub it in their face or anything?
No, I mean, unfortunately, both of my grandparents at that time had passed away, way before their time. So they never got to see me go to the military, but I'm sure there was probably going to be some healthy shit talking if they were still alive.
Hey man, it happens. So pilot, why did you decide to go on the ground instead of fly?
I think that there's a disconnect between being on the ground and being face to face with the enemy than being in the air, and there's not feeling that same feeling as looking your enemy in the face. You know what I mean? You're thousands of feet or tens of thousands of feet removed from the situation. I wanted to be on the ground and fight as an infantryman.
Gotcha. So you already kind of knew what you wanted to do. No other MOSs, just straight infantry, just go straight through.
So my original MOS that I was interested in was crash fire rescue. Kind of went along with my EMT and firefighter, background in college, and then I kind of took a step back and questioned myself, like, if I'm going to join the Marine Corps during a time of war, why the hell am I going to join Crash Fire Rescue and not join as an infantryman in sea combat? It goes back to what I originally stated. As a kid, your dreams are to shoot shit and blow shit up, and that was ultimately my decision to join the infantry. Sorry, Mom, if you ever watch this, but I had to pull the wool over her eyes because she didn't want me to just join the infantry straight away. So I had to join with a security forces contract, which I knew that after my 2 years at security forces, I would do 3 years at an infantry battalion. That wasn't her understanding. Sorry, Mom.
Hey man, it is what it is. Sometimes we gotta lie to our parents to get something done. I understand that a lot, actually. I really do. So from the time that you lied to your parents to the time you got to boot camp, how long was that process?
It was about a 6-month process. So I think I had enlisted in December of 2005, and then maybe it was 2004, and then I went to boot camp in August of 2005. So 6 to 8 month period. My mom was not happy. My wife now, who I've been with since 2001, no, since 2003. Strike that. No, we've been together for 16 years. You know, she knew that I was going to join the Marine Corps. We had talked about it. My mom and I hadn't really talked about it, and she was devastated when I came home and I told her that I had enlisted in the Marine Corps. She broke down and she just walked around the house devastated for the next 24 to 48 hours. It was rough. I've got 2 sisters that are 12 and 13 years younger than I am. So, you know, they didn't really understand. All they knew was that their brother was going away. You know, and it was difficult to say the least. But definitely my mom took it the hardest. She, you know, like every mother whose son, daughter joins the military, the first thing that comes to mind, especially during a time of war, is, you know, you're going to get killed. You're never going to come back. You know, that's every parent's nightmare. So,
Yeah. So after the 6 months, you go to boot camp. Did you go East Coast? Or you go West Coast?
West Coast. So,
Okay.
you know, California, and went down to MCRD San Diego, and it was interesting. It really was. I'm glad that I joined the Marine Corps at 23 years old and not at 18, because I had held multiple jobs prior to me joining the Marine Corps. I'd worked at, you know, a bakery, I'd worked at Starbucks for a while, did construction, I'd gone to college, went to the firefighter academy, which was, you know, somewhat military structured. So, you know, I already had drive, determination, motivation, self-discipline, and I knew what the real world was like, rather than someone who is 18 years old, fresh out of high school, has zero idea what they're getting themselves into. So it was a little bit it was a little bit easier for me because I could see boot camp for what it was. You know, I learned how to play the game, and you know, wasn't devastated or wasn't overly impacted emotionally by what was happening.
Okay. Not bad. So you didn't have much of a culture shock, you can say.
No, not at all.
That's good. So after boot camp, did you go home? Did you go straight to a different school?
So after boot camp, I went to, you know, everyone gets their 10 days of boot leave. And then from there, I went to SOI, School of Infantry West at Camp Pendleton, where I achieved or received the MOS of 0351 Assaultman. And then from there, my first duty station was second fast company after going through BSG, Basic Security Guard School, um, in Rapid Security Forces. So
nice. So from the time that you get to what was it, second fast? You said. How was your experience there at second fast?
it was good. I had really good leaders. I still keep in touch with one of my squad leaders, Sergeant Sigmund. He was an LAR guy, but he had seen combat in Nasiriyah, and he was a huge influence on me as a Marine, me as a leader, me as an infantryman. So he taught me the ropes, gave me some tough love, and I credit him for me being the Marine that I turned out to be, and I still reflect on his leadership and sometimes take a step back and ask myself what he would do in the situation. So he made a huge impact on me.
Cool, man. Cool. After second fast, or when you got to second fast, did you travel anywhere? Did you deploy anywhere?
So we did two, I don't know if you call them stateside deployments, but we guarding nuclear material, safeguarding nuclear material in Bremerton, Washington.
Okay.
So we did a 3-month refuel defuel mission out there as they were moving nuclear material to and from a submarine. And then I did 8 months in Bahrain. So, I mean, the FAST company is a unit that is used as a quick reaction force for embassies throughout the world. So we were sent out in CENTCOM for 8 months, and then did another refuel defuel in the Newport News area.
Cool. That's the only places you went to with second fast?
It is.
Nice. After second fast, where did you end up going?
So in March of 2008, I checked into 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. That was as they were coming back from their 2008 Iraq deployment. So checked into there and, became the section leader for the assault section at Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines.
Nice. When you got there, how was your experience? How was your overall look about it? Culture shock as well, or?
A little bit. I mean, the fleet is very different from Fast Company. It wasn't as much of culture shock for me because, again, I attribute that ease, that transition into 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines to my leadership in Fast Company. I mean, they were infantrymen. They let me know what the fleet was going to be like. Fast in terms of the atmosphere at that time and the command climate, at least in our platoon, was no different from what I fell into in the fleet. They kept us as a platoon very infantry centric and didn't, let our infantry skills fall to the wayside as a lot of, Marines from security forces do, and it's all dependent on the leadership. So I was ready, I was prepared, and I was excited to be in the fleet.
Nice. Where'd you travel or deploy with them at? Or
so I was with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines for longer than I'd like to admit. I was 2008 until 2014. I had done the 31st MEU with them, which is in PACOM, so South Pacific. I went to sang in Afghanistan with them in 2010, 2011, and then I did the 15th MEU with them to CENTCOM in 2013, 2014.
Okay. Nice. After 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, where else did you go?
I went to, after 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, I went to School of Infantry West as a combat instructor, and then in 2017, I went to Victor 2-4 and did the deployment to Darwin, Australia with them before, and then finally, I'm out here in Quantico, Virginia.
Nice. And that's where your story ends? You're here now?
That's where I am.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So it sounds like you had a long journey and some time stuck in certain battalions.
Good time. You know, most Marines don't stay in an infantry battalion for as long as I stayed in 3-5. That was by choice, and that was the unit that impacted me the most in terms of all of the connections that I made with Marines. My heart and soul is still in 5th Marines and in 3-5, and hopefully after my time up here at Quantico, I'd like to get back to 5th Marines and finish my time out, give back to the battalion and the regiment that I think raised me in the Marine Corps.
Hey man, don't feel too bad. I'm organic 9 years to 3-5. Don't feel bad.
I won't feel so bad about 6 years then.
Yeah, man. It's I'm the godfather, you can say, or the grand old man of 3-5. 9 years, man. 9 years. They kind of pawned me off to 5th Regiment for a while, and I was in charge of the gym, the fight gym down there, and I got stuck at the what is it, the shooting little spot, the IT place or whatever. This area. I was there for a little bit, and then they realized that I was losing my mind there, so they're like, "Hey, dude, let's throw you in the gym." Like, sounds good. So I was running the gym for a while, and then when you guys came back from that second MU, was when they go, "Hey, what do you want to do?" I'm like, "I'll deploy one more time." I asked my wife, I go, "Can I deploy one more time?" She goes, "Yeah, go for it." So 9 years, and then I got out. Don't feel too bad.
I think they've got a bronze statue of you outside of the CP.
Oh man, don't say that. Oh, come on. You're heading on standby.
They've named the company out of you.
Really?
Barba Company.
Barba Company, all right. The dark side. Oh man. Damn, man. So obviously you've traveled and you deployed with a couple companies and you've been with the certain battalions and certain units for a while. What's your favorite unit, you can say?
Like I said, 3-5. Just because of all of the Marines all the connections with the Marines that I made there, and all of the shared misery, trials and tribulations, all of the personal professional development that I made while I was there, all the senior leaders, the Sergeant Major Bushways and the now General Morrises, they will forever have a place in my heart and in my mind, and that's the battalion that I grew to love, because I grew so much personally and professionally. Without 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, as a whole, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Nice. Well, I got to experience some of those deployments with you as well, and it was fun. Everything from seeing Australia, Philippines, Thailand, Japan, and then seeing the different side of the deployments of Afghanistan and everything else. I got to see that as well with you. So it's fun. I remember certain situations, certain scenarios with you, and it was fun. I'm not gonna lie to you. So yeah, man, it was you were around for a while and along for the ride, and it was good, man. It really was. Besides with your time and experience with the last, how many years have you been in? You said 14?
14 years next week on August 8th.
Nice, man. Nice. Congratulations. With your 14 years of experience, have you ever used any of your training or like any kind of scenario with anything?
So the first time that I was ever exposed to, and it wasn't even in a combat situation. So during our deployment to Bahrain with Fast Company, the way that it works is 2 fast platoons are deployed to different locations throughout the globe. One is the QRF for the installation itself, in addition to the naval security force that's on the base, and then a platoon is the QRF for that area of operations. So when we were on the quick reaction force for the base in Bahrain, it was my squad that was on QRF. We had received a call In the middle of the night, it was probably 01 or 02 of shots fired. The Navy had contacted our, secured compound and said, shots fired, this block of barracks. I didn't think anything of it at the time. So the Marine that was on duty at our little compound came in and was like, "Hey, Sergeant, there's the Navy called, so there's the call of shots fired." Again, I didn't think anything of it, and I was like, "Okay, well, let me know what's going on with the situation." He comes immediately back in, probably 20 seconds later, and was like, "Hey, this is real. There's more shots being fired. Navy is responding." So I got my squad up. We geared up, made conditional weapons, jumped in the back of our Humvee, and then moved probably 400 meters down to the nearest barracks where the Naval Security Force had the building surrounded. I talked to the chief that was on scene, and he was like, "Yeah, there's shots fired from a barracks room on the fourth floor." So we come up with a real quick plan. We make our way up to the fourth floor, cordon off the area, and there's a room that we are focused on. We try to break down the door with a battering ram. We can't open it because it's one of the electric key cards. So we're sitting there holding security on this door until we're able to get the electronic key card to open up the room. We make entry into the room, and we were not prepared for what we had seen. Immediately upon entry, there's water pouring from the ceiling. For what we found out, the reason was that a bullet had struck the piping for the sprinklers. Immediately within the 2 feet that we enter the room, there's a deceased female that's on the floor in front of the vanity. As we move further into the room, there's a male subject in there that has a M4 and a pistol laying next to him, and then there's another female that's laying on the floor directly across from him, all with gunshot wounds to the head. The male, it turned out, had a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And what had occurred was, it was some kind of quarrel. He went, checked out his firearms, and made his way up to the room, and it was a murder-suicide. So it was pretty crazy. Like I said, we weren't prepared for that. That was my first exposure to anything of that nature at NSA Bahrain, and the next exposure to a time that I had to utilize any of my skills that I had learned at SOI and follow-on schools was during my combat experience in staying in Afghanistan as a squad leader in 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, 2nd Platoon, 1st Squad Leader.
Wow, man, that's it's heavy. Yeah, that really is heavy. That's a lot.
It was crazy.
Yeah, man. How was that all to like absorb it all and like take it all in?
It was combat. So combat in Afghanistan was easier to digest than what we had experienced in Bahrain, and it was because of our mentality, and the fact that it was blue on blue. You know what I mean? You're never prepared for that blue on blue situation, especially in that perspective or in that scenario. You're always gearing yourself towards an enemy that is engaging you in combat. So I think that experience initially had affected me more than or equally to the experience that I had in Afghanistan. It was a little bit different. Like that, those images are still burned in my mind. And it was just because of the scenario. I don't think you're ever ready for that.
Understood. This next question might sound like a continuing question based off of what you just shared with me. But did this scenario or any other scenario that you've ever encountered, has it made you view or see the world in a different light?
All of my experiences, in combat, or that non-combat experience, that high stress scenario, um, it makes you appreciate your mortality, and it also kind of opens your eyes to the evil that is in the world. You know what I mean? Like you don't see pure evil until you've experienced combat. The sights, the sounds, people are doing horrible things to each other. Um, and I can remember one instance specifically, um, when there was a informant that we had contact with when we had done a helo raid on the other side of the Helmand. And the look in his eyes, I will never forget. It was the look of someone who is pure evil down to his very soul. I still remember his eyes. I still remember the look in his eyes. It was wild, controlled, just evil and anger. So it's enlightening. You know what I mean? Like you never. Most people will never experience anything like that, and they will never see the horrors that we've witnessed. Nor can you even imagine the things that we've experienced and continued. Not only can you not imagine what we've experienced, but you can't imagine how that affects you afterwards, and the impact that it has on your life, on your family, on your perspective, and just you as a human being overall.
Besides that scenario you just shared, is there any other scenario or any other impact or an event that you hold deeply
So
that you're willing to share?
there are a lot that have impacted me. Luckily, there were, for my squad specifically, we had only had one injured, and that was when Romo got hit by an IED, and then one killed, and that was when Lieutenant Donnelly was killed on Thanksgiving Day of all days in 2010. So those two scenarios impact me for very different reasons. Romo's situation impacts me because, in my perspective, it should have never happened, and I reflect on it in terms of me as a leader. I should have assessed the situation and put my foot down in terms of canceling that mission and heading back, because it was the perfect storm, literally. There was pouring rain, there was lightning, our freedom of movement was limited because we were moving through the fields, we were getting bogged down. There was a mission to be accomplished, and that was to intercept supposed enemy forces that were going to be attacking PB Transformer, which was our patrol base. So we had departed from PB Fires earlier on. And everyone talks about the sixth sense. You have a feeling that something is going to go wrong. You have a feeling that something is wrong. And that feeling I had from the moment that we stepped off in Fires. We lost comm immediately, like 50 meters outside of the wire. We had to go back in the wire 3 or 4 times to establish communications. Halfway through the patrol, it was pouring rain. We had to seek cover inside of compounds because the lightning and the amount of rain that was coming down. A number of times I requested, to cancel the mission and not continue on because of our lack of freedom of movement in the fields, the potential for us to get bogged down or fall into an enemy ambush, and at that point, we're stuck in this open field, unable to move because the suction that's on your boots is slowing you down. So the potential for more casualties or casualties was high, but because of the nature of the mission, we were told to continue on. We went left when so we had broken up into multiple elements. Myself and my first fire team went into a compound that was somewhat destroyed. There was a hole in the compound wall that we moved through in order to continue on to our objective area. And again, we had gone left. Our second element went right. We went between the compound wall, or I'm sorry, between a tree and a canal. They went between the compound wall and the tree. So because they went between the compound wall and the tree on the footpath, there was an IED there. Luckily for us, and luckily for Romo, the IED was wet and low ordered, because I think that had it not been wet, and he took the full brunt of that IED, because it was very large IED. It had basically blown his 240 in half. But had it not low ordered because of the nature of the conditions that day, I don't think he would have made it. But he was the fifth man. I think he was the fifth man in that particular element, and it must have just worn down on those wires just enough, rubbed the rust off or whatever it was, and he stepped on it, or he was heavier than everybody else because he was carrying the 240, and he hit it. So that really made an impact on me, because I feel and felt that as the squad leader, that it was my responsibility to, with all of the information as the on-scene commander, despite what Hire was telling me, to call it, to retrograde back to front lines, no matter what the consequences were. So I still hold myself, accountable for that. And it is what it is. The same goes for, when Lieutenant Donnelly was killed. We got the word that there was a Taliban commander living just on the other side of the green zone in the tree line. So the way that TV transformer was set up, we were near the desert, right along the 611 between us and the tree line, and Kodazeh, which is a Taliban hotbed, was a couple hundred meters of cornfield when there were crops, or as I like to call it, no man's land, like in World War I trench warfare. The Taliban was on that side, we were on our side, and that open field was no man's land, and anyone that entered no man's land was ripe for the picking. And that's literally what it turned into, because their side was heavily mined, and was protected by what we had assessed at the time was someone who had, I don't want to say precision fire capabilities, but was more well versed in marksmanship, in conjunction with a couple PKMs. So that guy would take a shot as soon as we would orient on that direction where the single shooter was coming from. PKMs would open up for another direction. So the night prior we had gotten, or the day prior we had gotten information. So this would be 24 November of 2010. We had gotten the information that we received an order from Hire to go and get Hijazi, was his name, uh, the Taliban commander for that area. They had found his location, or what we thought was his location, and our task was to go and capture him, kill or capture him. I knew what the mission entailed, and I knew the difficulties, and I knew, because I was able to turn the map around, as they say, and view it from the Taliban perspective. I had assessed through my, most dangerous, most likely course of action in my MET-T analysis at the time. I wish that I kept my notebook, because it's almost like I had written script for a play, and it played out exactly how I had assessed it was going to. But I brought my concerns to at the time Lieutenant Donnelly. Said, "Hey, sir, this is what's going to happen. This is what my assessment is. This is what I'm requesting." So there was an adjacent unit called Buckeye, and it was one of the reservist units that were just north of us at PB Alcatraz. They had vehicles. We had a vehicle. What I had requested is Buckeye comes down and runs a screen line for us with their vehicles to allow us to get into the green zone and the Côte d'Azur area without getting torn to pieces on the way there. And they were more mobile with their vehicles to, be able to put heavy machine gun fire, Mark 19, M250 cals on the enemy should we get into trouble. I also requested a platoon, or I'm sorry, not a platoon, an element, whether that was a squad or two squads from EB Fires, to screen to the south, to basically cut off the freedom of movement of Taliban forces, to not allow them to basically ambush us or encircle us, because they were very mobile via motorcycles, via foot, and they had freedom of movement throughout the area and were able to infiltrate. So unfortunately, none of those requests happened, and it was my squad reinforced with machine guns. I had a forward observer from the 81 millimeter mortar platoon, and I had a handful of ANA, because all of our patrols had to be partnered. So all in all, when I left the wire, I had probably close to 20 Marines. 20 Marines, and then probably another 10 or 12 ANA. So I had a pretty large patrol. We made the decision to push out just as the sun was coming up, to try to gain a little bit of ground before any activity had started. But immediately when we left PB Fire, or PB Transformer, everyone knew we were leaving. We were right in the middle of a densely kind of populated area. As we left the patrol base, there were a number of local nationals that were sitting around a fire just outside, probably 50 to 100 meters away, and we knew the gig was up right then. As we moved into one of the buildings, in, I think it was Pop 8 Romeo or Pop 8 Quebec, built 117. I'll never forget that building number. We had set up an overwatch position and started clearing the buildings immediately around, looking for this Hijazi's compound. ANA pointed out a compound that they had known to be Hijazi's compound, or they said was Hijazi's compound. And we had sent an inner cordon, sent an outer cordon internally, and then made entry into the compound, searched it. The compound was made out of, it had its usual high brick or mud walls around it. The inside of the compound was made out of concrete. Made out of concrete, had like a washer and a dryer in there. The walls were covered with, ornate rugs, and like, it wasn't your typical compound you've gone into. So, we thought that we had hit the jackpot. We set up security around that compound, and I radioed back to the other portion of my squad, the other element, that was back at building 117. That was, we were probably 100 meters away from each other. We had line of sight. I could see them. They could see me. Our position was split from theirs by about a 50-meter gap that was exposed to about a 200 by 200 meter cornfield. All the corn was done at that time. That cornfield was surrounded by a low wall and a tree line. So we had set up security, put one of my machine gunners facing towards the long axis of that cornfield. I put myself to a building that was a known firing point. It was a multi-story building that was sitting on the edge of another cornfield. And then, the other element of my squad started filing past. I think there had been 2 or 3 individuals that had made their way into the cornfield and crossed to what we had known as Hijazi's compound before I heard 3 shots in rapid succession to my 6 o'clock, to my back, at which point I got up, turned around, oriented towards the direction of fire, and, put a couple rounds down range and then moved because I was completely exposed at that point to the compound where my alpha element, if you want to call it, was at. When I got there, I met up with Sergeant Furon, who was our engineer, and we were like, "What the hell's going on?" Lance Corporal Rodriguez, called Warning Shot, was firing away with his 240. He had seen someone in the tree line. He's firing away with his 240. And myself and Sergeant Furon looked back to our other element, and the majority element is in a canal behind a wall, seeking cover. We're inside of the compound, kind of doorway and fatal funnel, looking out, and in the middle of the field, we see a Marine in the prone. What we thought was a Marine in the prone. It was a Marine, but the Marine wasn't in the prone. So we're yelling at the Marine. We're like saying, "Hey, get up, get up. We've got you covered. Get up." Again, Rod's firing away with his 240. And at that point, Sergeant Furon and I realized that Marine's not, seeking cover. That Marine's hit. So we both, look each other in the face and we're like, "All right, let's go." We run out to the Marine, roll the Marine over, and it's Lieutenant Donnelly. His eyes are closed. He's got both hands on his weapon, not moving, and we made the assessment that he was probably deceased. I started in the direction that we had received fire from, and that Lance Corporal Rodriguez was engaging with his 240. So I'm engaging with my M4 and my 203, putting some high explosive rounds into the tree line, and myself and Sergeant Furon start moving back to the canal. Sergeant Furon's dragging Lieutenant Donnelly, and I'm engaging the tree line where we had received fire. We get into the nearest canal. It's probably 20 meters or so away, and I'm on the radio. I'm oriented towards where we had taken fire. Everyone else had kind of gone back. I had my Bravo element in the canal. My Alpha element is still at the building where, the Hijazi compound, and Sergeant Furon's starting to, check to see what the status of Lieutenant Donnelly was. At that point, he noticed that there was, blood coming from underneath the lip of the Kevlar of Lieutenant Donnelly. He wasn't breathing, didn't feel a heartbeat. So, called it up to higher, requested QRF, requested air on station. We were taking sporadic fire from, the the wall, the tree line. So requested air, requested QRF, and at that point, another squad that was at transformer was launched, and then they were stopped by enemy fire as they were trying to get into the tree line. So again, once that was my assessment, was we were going to get into the tree line where the Taliban was at. They were going to, mass fires on us. If we had taken a casualty, we were essentially trapped with our back against the wall because we had that open area. During daylight, it would have been suicidal to try to go in there, and then they were going to cut off our QRF, and that's exactly what we did. Without vehicle support there, maneuver or put, fires from the Mark 19 or heavy machine gun fire, we were, gunning it out one-on-one with the forces that were there. So I call everybody back to regroup at Building 117 because it was a very secure location. And then everyone retrograded back to Building 117, but they had basically forgotten about myself and Sergeant Furon in the canal. So it's myself, Sergeant Furon, and Lieutenant Donnelly in the canal, and the rest of my squad had moved back probably another 50 meters to Building 117. By this point, aircraft were on station. I directed the aircraft to where we had been receiving fire from, which was about at that point 100 to 125 meters away from us, and they dropped two 500-pound bombs in the tree line and in the canal where we had been receiving fire from. That was the one time that I tell everybody that I had a religious experience, because Sergeant Furon and I are laying in this canal. We can see the aircraft, or we can hear the aircraft overhead, and they're dropping a 500-pound bomb 100 meters away from us in another tree line. So we're laying there and we're like, God, if we get out of this, everyone's like, I'm going to be an altar boy. I'm going to wrong all these rites that I've ever done in my life. And, it was so close that when they, let out the call that the bombs were away, you could see the bomb falling from the aircraft in air, wobbling as it was falling to the earth. The bombs hit, enemy fires over. I call another fire team out to help us because now we had two Marines that had to pull a casualty out of a canal. Fire team comes out and we move Lieutenant Donnelly back to the Building 117. Once we get in there, we set up our security positions. I'm still talking to hire, still trying to get somebody else to come and assist us because the other squad that was launched was pinned down by enemy fire. What we didn't know is as the Bravo element of my squad were leaving Building 117, and as the last Marine left, two Taliban members had gone into the building through, there was an attached garden that there was a wall and a doorway, but they crawled in to that garden through the doorway or through a hole in the wall. So we were in the same compound with these two Taliban members and we didn't even know it. We had secured our portion. As we went into the compound, they jumped out of the hole, and one of my Marines, Lance Corporal Shoemaker, was up on top of the roof with probably a chest-high wall, looking down with his he had his saw, the M249, and probably within a 15 feet, whatever the distance was that he was high up, down to the ground, these two Taliban members start shooting at him. Luckily, they can't shoot worth a crap because all he got was a hole in his pocket that he was really proud of. But he was engaging these dudes basically face to face within like a 15-foot section. I don't know if he hit them or not, They ended up taking off. As they were running out, myself and I looked at Firon and I was like, we got to get some grenades over this wall. Because if they had gone just to the other side of the wall, they could have hid there and then come back. So we're going, lob some grenades over the wall to cut off their egress. From there, we set up, our F started calling on-call targets for artillery around our position. Basically all of 3rd Platoon had come from fires, and en route they encountered a pretty substantial enemy force in which they had taken a casualty. That was Espinoza, Corporal Espinoza at the time. Took a gunshot wound to the ankle. And then, they had aircraft in support, a mixed section of Huey and Cobra, who, were engaging firing points. We filtered out of Building 117, all linked up, and started moving for a retrograde back to PB Transformer. At that point, the Taliban must have been waiting for us. They had called all their buddies, and they were waiting for us to enter that no man's land, that kill zone. So I was probably the 6th or 7th man out of a gap in the wall into that field, and then I had never experienced so much enemy fire concentrated at one time. It was coming from every direction. You couldn't pinpoint where it was coming from, but we were just getting dumped on by enemy forces. Aircraft were overhead, doing gun runs, shooting rockets into firing points that were 50 to 100 meters away from us. Both a Huey and a Cobra were making multiple gun runs. They ended up going Winchester on their ammo, on every weapon system that they had, as we were trying to retrograde back. That fire continued until we had made it back to PB Transformer. And then from there, we, reorganized and gotten Lieutenant Donnelly out of there via aircraft. So that's kind of a synopsis of how everything went down. I'm sure that there were way different perspectives, and there's things that I missed. Looked over, glanced over, but those were the main things that had gotten my attention, that stick out in my mind. Mainly is the us yelling at this Marine just laying in the field. You know what I mean? Like, we had, I don't know, it was a shock to the senses, seeing your platoon commander, dead. It was hard. It really was, because he was loved by everybody in the platoon. He was a very personable guy. But again, we were, mission accomplishment comes first, and we were trying to accomplish a mission with the resources that we had. So, that's our duty as Marines. But those were the two things that really impacted me, and still impact me to this day. You know what I mean? You'll never forget those images.
It's a hard thing to live with, man. It really is, especially you. Now I know how you witnessed it all and experienced it all. I was just one of the knuckleheads that got called, and I was just trying to do my part and help you guys out. I was that reinforced team that got pinned down to the east side trying to help you guys out. And it's a scary feeling, man. It really is. And hearing it all, I was nowhere near where you guys were at, but hearing it all, trying to place myself where you were at, I can't say I don't know how I would have taken it, but from I to you, from somebody that has looked up to you for forever, man. Holy shit, dude! I can't even come up with the words I want to say. Like I'm speechless. I really am, and damn, I just don't even know what to say. I really don't, man. And seeing how strong you are as a person from the distance, hearing you explain your story, composing yourself as you're talking it, man, it's all right. Let it out, dude. It really is. And I'm glad you shared that with me. I really am. Lieutenant Donnelly was one of those guys that, and you know how I was and still am to this point. You got to show me respect in order to get respect. And he did not hold back to show me that respect. He was loved, like you said, by all of us. And we would follow him anywhere and do anything for him. We really would. Just like with him, same thing with you, man. Even to this day, you tell me, hey, I need to put a special team together. You know you can count on me, and I'm there. I really am. I'd follow you into the freaking fires of hell and come out a little burnt, but I'd help you rip the freaking head off the damn devil. I really would, man. And
I appreciate it.
And it's humbling hearing you tell that story. Because just hearing you telling me everything and taking me back to that day and remembering everything from where I was at, it starts putting pieces together. It really does. And now I can see how it is that that really did affect you and how it's, and I'm not even going to say how I know how hard it is, but I know how it can make things hard and see the light in certain ways and see good in the world where there's so much damn evil and experience everything that we have experienced. And obviously, you saw things and took things in a different light than everyone else. But you still conduct yourself like a great man and hold down the fort, obviously, with you, your wife, and your kid now, and still moving forward and staying positive from the experiences that you have had. And that's just one big impact, huge impact compared to XYZ days that you were there and everything else you have done. So I do want to say thank you for sharing, honestly. It gave me a new view on that situation. And I know for you and many others that were there, Thanksgiving will never be the same.
Well, I appreciate the platform for the ability to be able to talk about that. I've never told, I've told a very, very small group of individuals this story, mainly because I'm not someone who, I'm not, you know, I'm not somebody who beats my chest about anything that I've ever done. You know, it's probably not humble to call yourself humble, but it's not something that I share with people. One, because that's private. That's an experience that I've got. Two, I don't like to relive that experience. And three, like, nobody needs to know about it. Nobody needs to know about it, and you know, people look at you different, not necessarily negatively, but they look at you different based on your experiences or in Marines, like what you've got on your chest. And it's not about what you did yesterday. It's about what you are doing now and what you do tomorrow. I don't want to be judged on what I did 10 years ago, positive or negative. I want to be judged on the impact that I'm currently making or trying to make in people's lives and Marines' lives now and in the future, and not, like I said, what I've done previously. Like, that's neither here nor there. And I think that we, as a society, or we as Marines, we we dwell on the past and we like to, ride the coattails of our own accomplishments in the past when that shit's gone. You know what I mean? Like, shit's over with. And you need to look to the future, because if you're living in the past, you're gonna miss out on everything that's good in life now.
Right.
And that's my outlook. That's my perspective, in terms of what I'm doing now, or what I like, how I live my life. If I live in the past, I'm gonna remain there, and I'm not gonna enjoy my son and my family and my life. So
You are right. And one thing that I had to tell myself, and I hope it helps you out a little bit as well, is the ground that we should step on is no longer in front of us. So the ground we step on now is not going to blow up underneath us. The bullets that were shot at us 9 years ago are not whizzing by us right now. They can't hurt us anymore. And as crappy as it is for me to say this right now, we have to learn how to let go of the past. It was a job, move forward, and get past our struggles, get past our obstacles, and move on. Like, just real quick, one of the things that has helped me with my BS that they kind of title us and blanket us with, that is some kind of disease, is there's a tree line just down the road from my house, open field tree line with hills. It reminds me of the area we were at. And I would throw on a song or throw on anything that would remind me of taking myself back to those moments, where I would listen to a certain song before going on every patrol. And then in the next song that would play, it starts off with gunfire, it starts off with rockets, it starts off with everything. And it took me a while, almost a whole year, to be able to make it to the tree line. And it's an L-shaped tree line. Being able to walk next to it or run by it was a motherfucker, because it would take me back. And seeing the water in it, bringing back memories from getting shot at the first time with Matt in the canal, being, doing everything. I don't even want to say it because this isn't about me. Just everything. Just you experienced it. It takes us back, and it's hard. It really, really is. And honestly, like you said, it's what we do now and what we do tomorrow that we should be judged on. And I would like to know what it is that you are doing now. What is it that you are seeking? Obviously, I know you said that you are the monitor right now at Marine Corps, on the east side. So, what is it that you're doing now besides that?
So, I mean, I'm living, man. I'm trying to be the best husband, father, that I can be, and influence, lead, develop, mentor, all those buzzwords that we like to use in the Marine Corps, young Marines. I have a very small opportunity at Headquarters Marine Corps to influence young Marines, because everybody that works up there are majors, lieutenant colonels, master guns. I'm the low man on the totem pole as a gunner, which is pretty funny. But the junior Marines that I can impact, I like to let them learn from my experiences and my faults, as a young Marine, as a young sergeant, as a young corporal, and kind of guide them in the right direction. And then, when I was back in Victor 2-4, used my experiences in combat and not in combat to, try and communicate the importance of the basics and those small things to those Marines. Because all too often we either, look at the basics as I'm too cool for that, or we're doing something that's way high speed, but we haven't mastered the basics yet, and that's what really kicks in, and where your muscle memory comes in, and that's what you rely on, is your training and that repetition, when quote unquote shit hits the fan. We can't lose sight of those basics and our discipline and everything like that. So
Right.
Yeah, just trying to influence who I can for the short amount of time that I will be in the Marine Corps, short being the next 6 years. So just trying to make an impact, man. Just trying to be a positive influence to to others and make a difference.
So what's next after the 6 years, man? What do you see yourself doing?
So I'd like to continue to serve my community and my country in some sort of way. Whether it's, I'll probably be too old to be a firefighter at that point. I'll be the ripe old age of 43. But maybe a paramedic, maybe a nurse, or do some kind of consulting for emergency disaster management. I'm going to start working on my bachelor, or completing my bachelor here pretty soon. So try to get an education and really set an example for my son, a positive role model that he can look up to.
Awesome. So what did you end up naming your son?
His name is Barrett.
Barrett.
So there's kind of two parts to his name. One, it's named after the Barrett 50 caliber special application scope rifle, and then the other one, I wanted a strong boy name, so it's Germanic for strong as a bear. I tell everyone that I named him Barrett because he's loud, heavy, and uncomfortable to carry, like the Sasser.
It's a good one.
So, yeah.
Hey, man. I'm proud of you, honestly. I don't tell many people that I'm proud of them, but I'm really proud of you from everything you've ever done. Like I said, I've always been one of those guys that have watched you. No homo. Obviously, I love you. But from the distance, from seeing you in the barracks, running around with your assault men section, seeing you on ship, running around flexing in your silkies with an overholster, going out on Limbo with Crotch, Iowa, overholster as well. Seeing you guys in Japan, freaking hanging out, drinking a few beers, hanging out, going running, going to the gym. Seeing you in Afghanistan, taking over a squad, going from an assault section to being, I call it promoted into your own squad leader section, which secretly I'm deep down inside mad because I wanted to take that section after a certain incident that happened. But honestly, I'm glad that they picked you because you were the man for the job. You knew what you were doing. You were born for it, honestly. And as you can see, you're still moving forward. You're still doing your thing. And from one to another, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for continuing doing what you're doing. And I find it that you did something that I never could do, and that was become a sniper. It's not because I tried and failed. It's honestly, I just never went for it. I heard how the process was, and I was so much of a scared little bitch to move forward and do it. I didn't want my knees and ankles to break running with all that gear that they quote unquote haze you with. But honestly, it's that's how you weed out the weak. And to be honest, obviously we know that when I used to run back in the days, I wasn't the best in shape. Now I can probably keep up with you, or who knows, I can probably go faster than you. According to some people, I break them like it's nothing. But honestly, it's just one of those things where it's just, I'm glad you're moving forward. I'm glad you're staying positive. And you'll be a great father, and your son will have someone to look up to, something that a lot of us didn't have growing up, and you are very fitting to that role of a father and a good male figure, honestly. So again, it's great to see you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for telling us some stories. Thank you for spending this time with me and having you on do this as me, honestly.
I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I think this is a great platform and a way for us to, it's therapeutic. It's therapeutic, and hopefully, more guys can get their stories out, and we can utilize this to reach, other veterans and really make an impact. So I'm really grateful at the opportunity, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm here for you, man. Honestly, I'm here for you. I'm here for everyone else. So if there's anybody else that wants to, jump on here, tell their story, say their part, I'm here to listen. And that's what it is. It's just, I want to hear it out. I want to see you guys talk about it, honestly, because like you said, it is therapeutic. It really is. Anything else that you want us to bring up? Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
That's it, man. Stay in touch.
Definitely will. And honestly, to everyone that's watching, keep your eye out on Ryan Sotelo. He's got great things coming. And he will continue to keep moving forward with everything he does. He's always been a strong individual, strong person. And as we can see, he's still in shape, and he says he's an old man, but damn, look at him, he still looks good. So, hey, man, honestly, stay positive, stay moving, keep with that smile, keep moving forward, be that role model that all of us need us to freaking see from the distance, even though we don't tell you or are afraid to tell you, we're watching. We really are. So for everyone, honestly, thank you guys for logging in. Thank you guys for watching. Ryan Sotelo, thank you for being on the show. And go on, subscribe, like that little thumbs up thingy, like the video. And until next time, we out.